Dollar note. I'll give you $1,000 if you serve me in English. The millionaire sneered, his polished shoes tapping arrogantly on the marble floor, his voice dripping with mockery. His eyes sparkled with that dangerous combination of wealth and condescension, a kind of charm that only arrogance can give. Everyone around paused for a split second, sensing the tension that hung like a heavy chandelier in the air. The waiter froze mid-step, the clinking of cutlery paused, and the soft murmur of the restaurant faded into an eerie silence, as if the world itself had taken a breath, waiting for her response. And there she stood, calm, unshaken. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, met his with a kind of quiet fire that he had clearly not anticipated. She was dressed simply, modestly, yet there was something about her presence that seemed to defy the opulence surrounding them. The chandelier reflected in her eyes, yet her gaze was unwavering, a mixture of patience and quiet confidence. For a moment, the millionaire's smirk faltered, a flicker of uncertainty passing through his carefully crafted mask of arrogance. He had assumed that his money, his power, and his charm would immediately bend her to his will. That $1,000, a gesture so trivial to someone of his status, would be enough to elicit the submission he expected. She tilted her head slightly, considering him, as if weighing his words against an invisible scale only she could see. Then, softly, almost under her breath, she spoke, but her words carried the weight of intention, precision, and calm defiance. "You think money is everything," she said, her voice steady, measured, and melodic. "You think $1,000 can buy respect, attention, or intelligence. But you are mistaken. Money may command obedience, but it cannot command dignity. It cannot command me." A gasp rose quietly from the few patrons close enough to hear, their eyes wide, glued to the unfolding drama. The millionaire blinked. Then he laughed. At first, nervously, then louder, attempting to regain his control. But the laughter had lost its edge. It felt hollow, as if it had been drained of substance. He stepped closer, leaning on the polished marble counter, trying to assert his dominance. "You are clever," he said, still attempting to smirk. "I like clever. I respect clever. But you misunderstand. I am generous. I am offering you an opportunity, and yet you dare." His voice trailed off, the words faltering against the steel of her gaze. She did not flinch. Instead, she smiled. Not the easy smile of submission, nor the polite smile of social compliance, but a smile that carried intelligence, wit, and the quiet satisfaction of someone who knows their own worth. "You offer money as if it is a test," she replied, her tone smooth, almost musical, yet sharp enough to pierce his ego. "But the real test is not of what I will do for you, it is what you are willing to learn about yourself. You offer arrogance, and expect obedience. You offer mockery, and expect fear. You are mistaken." For a long moment, he simply stared at her, the words unprocessed. His laughter had vanished entirely. His confidence, once towering, now felt fragile, like a crystal glass teetering on the edge of a table. He tried again, attempting charm, attempting humor, attempting the tools he had always used to bend people to his will. But none worked. She remained still, like a lighthouse amid a storm, unmoving, unshaken. Her calmness began to dominate the space around them. Even the staff, previously tense, began to feel the weight of her presence. Patrons who had been quietly sipping drinks turned, whispers spreading like wildfire. Who is she? How does she carry herself like that? And then, almost imperceptibly, she leaned slightly closer. Her voice dropping just enough to make him listen more carefully. I do not serve money. I do not bend to arrogance. I do not fear mockery. But I do value respect, truth, and intelligence. If you wish to see me in action, if you wish to understand, you must shed your assumptions first. The millionaire's face drained of color, a flicker of panic crossing his otherwise composed expression. This was not just defiance. This was clarity, insight, a mirror held up to his own arrogance. Every gesture, every smirk, every assumption he had made about the world and people like her suddenly seemed trivial, insignificant. He was used to control, used to people yielding to his will, used to power being unquestioned. And yet here, in this very moment, in this luxurious restaurant bathed in golden chandeliers and polished floors, he was confronted by someone who needed nothing from him. Someone whose power came not from wealth, not from influence, but from self-respect, intelligence, and presence. He opened his mouth, perhaps to speak, perhaps to regain control, but no words formed. She did not push. She did not demand. She simply waited, letting the silence stretch, letting the weight of her truth press against the facade he had built. Minutes, or perhaps only seconds, passed. And in that suspended time, something remarkable happened. The millionaire's chest rose and fell, his ego quietly shifting as realization seeped in. He had met his match not in cunning or ambition, but in simple clarity. Someone who would not be swayed by wealth or intimidation. Someone who carried themselves with dignity, who spoke with purpose, who owned their presence without demand or apology. Finally, he nodded, not arrogantly, not mockingly, but slowly, carefully. It was a nod that carried acknowledgement, perhaps even respect, though tinged with disbelief. He had offered money, he had offered mockery, and he had expected compliance. And yet here she was, unmoved, unshaken, a presence he could not buy or control. You are remarkable, he said finally, his voice quieter, almost reverent. I did not expect. She smiled, a small, knowing smile that held the weight of her insight. Expect nothing, she said softly. And perhaps you will begin to learn something worth more than money. And just like that, the dynamic of the room shifted. The whispers grew louder, admiration spreading quietly among those who had witnessed the exchange. The millionaire, for the first time in years, felt something unfamiliar: humility. A small, quiet lesson that money could never teach, but life could, if only one listened. The rest of the evening passed, but the memory of that encounter lingered. Conversations around the tables carried echoes of what had happened. The millionaire who learned a lesson in humility, and the girl who had reminded the world that true power does not lie in wealth, but in presence, confidence, and integrity. And somewhere, in the polished reflection of the marble floors, in the soft glow of the chandeliers, in the quiet smiles of those who had watched, the lesson was clear. Arrogance is fleeting, money is temporary, but respect and intelligence, they are eternal.